Well, I guess I will start the 10-minute interview. I guess my first question is what, I was really under the impression that you were some kind of duelist from our email exchanges that, well, I guess two questions, you can pick one to answer. What is it that you think that we disagree about? And we'll start, how about that question then?
I think we basically disagree about the openness maybe and the boundaries. In my perspective, in my lens, it's a prescription, as I'm talking that language of prescription in the lens, my view of human spirit has to be wide open to influence by something beyond myself. It cannot be measurable, not everything can be measurable. And I go back to something as simple as a blade of grass, or even our own quarks, which are reduced by some to light energy. And yet they don't even know exactly what that is, because it can be a wave or a particle. So there has to be, in my perspective, there has to be an openness to something that is not measurable by me. That doesn't mean it's not intelligible. It just means that similar to dark energy and black holes, we don't have the tools right now to measure it. It's perfectly concrete, and including the divine. Perfectly concrete but not physical, and intelligible. So I come from a faith perspective. That doesn't mean that necessarily I'm dualist, but it does mean I make distinctions. And that means that what I say openness means is that the human has to come to a point where it says there is information, data, actual data, that perhaps I don't grasp. And this data is not only natural, but it might be something that can't be measured by my natural means. And so that opens up faith for me. I think faith is a risk, and so is disbelief. Both are risks. You have to decide how you want to take your risks.
When you say it has to be not measurable, is that practically not measurable, or in principle, like even an all-knowing God couldn't measure it?
I think what I mean from my limited knowledge of it is that it's not measurable by the tools we currently have for human scientific measurement, in whether it's the field of ultraviolet light, or it's the field of magnetic resonancing, or if it's the field of some kind of atomic structure, whatever it is. But there are things, I suspect, that defy our tools of measurement as we know them. Does that mean we will never be able to somehow grasp them? No, I don't think so. I think, too, that our openness, the way I view it as consciousness being wide open on the end, that we might be very surprised about what boxes, and very narrow little boxes we put the divine in, and the crazy pictures we have. I think they're totally inadequate.
You have mentioned, like I heard the phrase, that something wasn't physical. What exactly were you talking about when you said that you were maybe open to something that was not physical? What was that?
Something that's not physical. Physical for me is molecular structure that can be in some way either medically or biologically evaluated, measured by some type of instrumentation, because it's physical in its structuring. And yet, I and you and maybe a lot of others, we know the love of another person, and we can see the effects of that. and you might be able to measure the effects of it. But I don't know if you can take your mother's love or your lover's love and say that's measurable except by its effects. So, I toy with those realities that that impact us through wonder and awe, and it opens up to me the whole question that I can't measure that stuff. I can't measure the what happens when a Palestinian woman gives an Israeli woman her kidney. I can measure the fact that she lost a kidney and now the kidney is in another body. I can do the physical part of that. But what motivated her when these people are supposed to be enemies to give that woman her kidney because her kidneys were failing? Stuff like that. We've got account upon account upon account of stuff like that that can't be measured with our physical tools because they're emotional, and yes, we can get maybe brain waves on some kind of a instrument, but the motivation for that, how do we measure that?
So you think that desires aren't physical? Is that?
Could be. Could be, not necessarily. Many of us have very concrete desires. We want to go out and have a pizza. Have very concrete desires. Or we want to be engaged sexually. Have very concrete desires. We all know, what that is. And yet, there are desires that we don't know the end of. We have a longing to know stuff. Why are we here? We want to figure out stuff that are very puzzling. We want ultimate answers. We don't want just, paste answers. We want to ask questions. At least from our correspondence, I understand that people here really are pushing for getting some deep answers about life's questions. We don't see the end of that. We don't see where that's going. It's open-ended. And so, we're kind of truth pilgrims, if you want to put it that way. And we're looking for data or information that kind of clicks together and makes sense. And, maybe the desire there is not measurable because we can't see the end. So, I'd say yes and no.
Or maybe that.
Depends. And it isn't what you buy for protection. Depends.
So, would you say then that, it sounds like in principle or hypothetically that if scientists are one day able to build artificial intelligent units, that you might agree that, they could probably have concrete desires or motivations, but maybe not the unending desires. Would that be?
Yeah, at least with my present knowledge, I would say that there will always be a human mind behind those machines. And that the technique, and that is my view of the brain also, which may be different from yours, Ben. If you are interested, you might Google the name Pam Reynolds. Pam Reynolds. I think it's Montreal, but it'll be on Google and you'll be able to open up a site. She had a brain growth on the brain stem that had to be removed. I don't know how old she was. And the neurosurgeons and the doctors decided that while they were doing this very, very tricky surgery, they informed her that hopefully she would survive, but that they would have to bring her down to, that she would be near brain dead, because they would have to work with the brain in order to affect the operation. So they set up a tape recorder. They did not show her the saw that they were going to use to open her skull. They covered her eyes, they plugged her ears so that the sense knowledge was down to a minimum, and then they anesthetized her. They were successful with the surgery. You'll see all this on the website. They were successful in recovery. Remember, she had little if no brain waves. So the brain was shut down. And when she recovered consciousness, to their amazement, she told them every single joke that they had told during that surgery. She described the saw that they used to open her skull. And every bit of what she verified was on tape. So the question to us, to me anyway, is who's the observer? If the brain is dead, who's working this? I don't have the answer to that question, so I just pose it to us. That gets at the question, I think, of is there something that is the I? I'm not talking this I. Is there something that works and operates through the brain as a communication instrument? That's why I say I feel that in the future, if such an instrument is created, there'll be a human brain behind whatever techniques, computerized artificial intelligence can be worked out. Because, well, either that or there's a ghost in the machine.
We're actually switching and now you
Okay.